put it into perspective what this signing, Jonah Williams, top 10 player nationally, what this means for Texas. Obviously, it's not signing day yet, but size that up for us.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think I mentioned it on the show last week. Like, there's never a must-get recruitment, especially in the portal era where, if you miss on a guy, you can go get an instant impact guy from another school in the offseason. But this was about as close as you could get to kind of a must-get situation for Texas. It's no secret their summer hasn't been going that great, or, the last couple months. We've seen a lot of decisions go elsewhere, and we've seen Texas get guys as well. It's not like they're striking out. They had the number 12 class last week entering, that run they had last weekend. But it was still a situation, Texas just lost Cade Phillips to LSU. That was a guy they didn't want to lose. He flips to LSU. Then you're battling LSU. You're battling Oregon, who's beat you for some other defensive backs and top targets for Jonah Williams. And you need a true safety in this class. You don't have that. Right now you have Caleb Chester, who's a cornerback. And, assuming you're losing, Michael Taff, Andrew Makuba next offseason, you need a guy to come in and be able to, be in that room with the others. So it was really important. And then that's just, aside from that, just the talent level. Like you said, he's a top 10 prospect. He's rated the number 1 linebacker in the country. Obviously, most have been recruiting him as a safety. That's where he projects at the next level. And, one of those big safeties, 6'3", 205, verified. He's a guy that, if they need him to play linebacker, he can grow into that if he had to. I talked to his coach after the announcement on Saturday evening in Galveston, and he was saying he's a kid, with that frame, he can add weight without sacrificing any speed. He's just that kind of freak athlete. He's a multiple type athlete. So it's going to be safety where he lines up. I think that's where, he has the chance to play early. And obviously he's a baseball prospect too. And I thought one of the most interesting things about Jonah Williams' kind of situation right now is everyone says, well, he's just going to be an early round draft pick. He's going to go to the MLB. He's never going to play college football. Well, he's going to his plan right now is to enroll early. And, if you're on scholarship, I guess from my understanding, regardless of sport, whether it's baseball or football, that eliminates you from being able to be drafted. I think, I need to double check on this, but that would mean, Texas has Jonah Williams for the football team as well. So we'll see how that all happens, but a massive, massive get, a guy they needed, a guy that's obviously their top ranked recruit right now. It puts them, I think, at the number 7 class at last check in the country. Obviously, some more decisions coming up, but yeah, it was a nice Saturday get for Texas football.
Yeah. I don't want to be the negative Nelly here, but what are the chances that he goes baseball out of high school?
It seems, I honestly almost lean towards pretty low right now. And obviously things can change over the next, 6 months. But if his plan is if he intends to truly enroll early, that would eliminate the MLB draft. And that would, give him, football. And so, I think Schloss was a huge addition. I think back in late June, right when Jim Schlossnagle got hired by Texas, I called Jonah Williams that night. At that point, he hadn't taken an official visit to Texas. They were kind of on the periphery of his recruitment. Not a lot of talk. He was saying he still wanted to officially visit Texas maybe in the fall, but with a summer decision, you got to lean towards the schools he actually took trips to in June. We talked to him the day Schloss got hired, and he said that really helped Texas. And from there on out, he got on campus with in late June or late July for that pool party with his mom, his dad, his older brother. And then also his dad, I talked to his dad. He was saying his dad, his older brother, Nick, who was actually an MLB player who lives in Austin, was very big in Texas's corner in this one. He really liked Texas and was kind of pushing Jonah towards picking Texas. So that was, and obviously he's in Austin. So, I think the family liked that aspect of it. They're not that far from him. They can drive to see him play on Saturdays or whenever. And obviously he has his brother in town as well to be near him. So I think it's looking good that he's going to end up, at Texas and playing, both sports at Texas.
Yeah, I can't remember a safety at Texas. 6'3".
Drew Kelson, maybe? Is that like the last one? He was like 6'4", wasn't he? Am I thinking of the right person?
I'm thinking Stanley Richard, but Jonah Williams is way more.
How big was BJ Foster?
He was like 6'2".
6'2", yeah.
Guy.
This kid's the real deal. He's a big time player. It's evident in all the schools pushing for him down the stretch, and he held his cards close to the close to the vest too. Like a lot of people didn't really have a great feel. I know in late July, we checked in with sources after that visit, and I really do think that was kind of the moment that pushed Texas over. I think they all kind of were like, okay, this is the move. But there was like legitimate feeling that they were in a good spot for him after that visit, and obviously you can't discount everybody else, and Jonah wasn't doing anything in terms of interviews or anything, so they were able to keep that momentum going into last Saturday.
Yeah, Hank. I mean, obviously the concern is him being burnt out during this time at Texas, because that's a lot. I mean, he's going to always miss spring camp once the baseball season's over, especially if the Horns make it to Omaha. We know that's the standard. So you go to Omaha, that goes all the way into the summer. You barely have time off. And probably during that time off, you got to get ready for the football season. And then it starts over again. So it's going to be really, really important for Jim Schlossnagle and Steve Sarkisian to have a plan for him to make sure he's not burnt out. And I'm sure they've discussed a lot lately.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm truly curious. It seems like, back in the day, it was maybe easier to kind of, what was it? Donovan McNabb played basketball and football at Syracuse. And, it seemed almost more feasible to do that. But nowadays in college athletics, when it's more akin to professional sports where it's like, this is your life. This is like, you're training year round. There's spring practice, there's summer workouts, there's all that. I'm curious to see how, if he makes a decision at some point, maybe not like, his freshman season, but maybe beyond, am I going to stick on the football route, or am I going to, focus on baseball and, go all in on that one direction. And I talked to his coach. His coach was saying, this is a kid that, he's never really been coached at one position. Like he's never really been able to focus at one thing. It's because he's like, they use him all over the field at Galveston Ball on both sides of the ball. He was like, once he like gets into, a specific area where, whether they're training him at safety, they're developing him, wherever, he's going to go up another notch, which is saying a lot, with how, successful he's already been. So yeah, it'll be curious. I think the burnout's a real thing. The demands on college athletes these days, it's a lot. So yeah, we'll see how that goes once he gets to Texas.
Hank, what else is at the top of your recruiting notebook?
Yeah. So I think, obviously we saw Nick Brooks commit last Friday too. Don't want to, undersell that. That was that kind of completed their offensive line efforts. I'm not, I don't want to say completed. I think they'll still, keep in contact with some guys like, Lamont Rogers, potentially Michael Fasusi, who committed to Oklahoma last Wednesday. But I think, you could probably assume that the offensive line is pretty much wrapped up. And, Nick Brooks, 6'7", 345 pounds. And I talked to Grayson's one of those programs, like it's just like one of the biggest programs in the state of Georgia. So they have a director of sports science. So like a guy, and he was like the perfect one to talk to about Nick Brooks because, he has all the measurements on the kids. He has all the times, everything about them. And I don't have it pulled up right in front of me, but they did a 10-yard sprint or something. They clocked Nick Brooks at 6'7", 350 at 17.4 miles per hour. Which is, it's kind of insane. So he's a big guy that can move, big athletic kid that the sky's the limit. He was like, he told me this kid has a future NFL all over him, just a really talented kid. So, you could see why Texas was pushing so hard for him, even regardless of, where Michael Fasusi ended up. They wanted Michael Fasusi and Nick Brooks. They ended up getting Nick Brooks. I think, that's a pretty good deal. So, got Nick Brooks last week. This week, the big story ahead of, obviously Colorado State is Jamie French, who's going to kick off the weekend on August 30th, Friday, with his college announcement. And it's an early one. I think he's going at 7:15 Central Time. Obviously, he's in Jacksonville, so, it's the early morning at school for him. But, yeah, that's one, it's been quiet on Jamie French. He took he was a guy that said, I'm going – I think in – May, he said, I'm going to announce on August 30th. It's his mom's birthday. That's the day. And he never relented from that. That was the day he wanted to do. And it's been quiet just because, it's been a dead period. He hasn't been on visits. So, I think Texas is still right there for him. I think coming down the stretch, it's Texas versus Miami. You always got to watch Miami. They can get things done too. But I do like where Texas stands for him ahead of Friday. if Jamie French commits to Texas, I think last check last week, it would put them in the number 5 class, potentially number 4, like close to number 4. So, from all the, end is near crowd in July, I think Texas is in pretty good standing recruiting wise, entering the season.
All right, let's get into game week. Unless Zay, you got any other recruiting questions?
Nope.
All right, so Hank, what are you most excited about, and what's your biggest concern going into Saturday's game for the Longhorns against Colorado State?
Yeah. First, I'm excited. It's game week. Obviously, getting back in DKR, that's going to be fun. Exactly. I think what I'm most excited about, I'm excited to see how the secondary shapes up. Obviously we know a few, staple guys there, but who's going to line up, the cornerback positions, how are they going to fare against, kind of a pass happy offense in Colorado State. So that's going to be an interesting, I think, thing to watch. I'm very excited to see, just what this offense looks like. What's this, how they're going to, Sark talked about playing all these people, like, the different combos they're going to have. Obviously they're not going to give too much away against Colorado State ahead of Michigan week, but I'm just curious to see how those guys mesh with Quinn Ewers. Obviously, the running backs I think are going to be fine. Obviously, they add Belton Gardner. I think they're in an okay position there. As okay as you can be when you lose your starting running back. So I'm excited to see that. But yeah, the offense. I think the secondary. I'm excited to see it all. There's not like one specific area. It's just going to be fun to watch football again. And I was actually talking to a friend yesterday. I remember last year against Rice, Texas didn't, they didn't struggle, but they didn't play their best game. I think, a lot of people had maybe some concerns after that game going into Alabama week. How are they going to deal with the Crimson Tide? So, you almost kind of want Texas to you want them to win the game, obviously, but like maybe you want them to not look that great. So that you don't want them too confident going into Michigan week. You want them to kind of have a chip on their shoulder still. So, we'll see. I'm just excited for football. It's going to be a good time. Hopefully the weather holds up. I think it doesn't look like it's going to be crazy hot, like low 90s, which is like
92
fall weather for us. So it'll be fun.
What would be your biggest concern?
I guess just staying healthy. I think outside of the running back position, they got out of fall camp pretty unscathed. So, obviously, trying to take care of guys, keep them healthy for the entire season. Obviously it's one game, but, I guess injury bug. Other than that, I guess, I don't really have any other concerns for them. I think, being able to defend, the pass game, you see that was their one vulnerability last year, really on defense, where they struggled and would ultimately beat them against Michael Penix in Washington. So, how have they kind of shored up that department?
Yeah. Hank, do you remember Belton Gardner during the high school days? I know he was a big time quarterback at Dallas Skyline, but do you remember him any?
I really don't. I was still covering Bama. I want to say Mike Roach actually, he got wind of that on mid-August, that was a guy they were looking at. And, I think there was some buzz that he was going to end up at Texas State. And then obviously Texas came calling. But no, I don't really remember it. He seems like the best running back you could possibly get this late in the portal ahead of the season. He has some pretty good highlights and obviously has been around a couple places. So, I think in terms of depth, that's as good as you can, get this late.
Yeah.
All right. So what about Braden Fowler Nicolosi or Torrey Horton? Any Rams stand out to you? This is my son's college team, and he's not even coming in for this game. He's like, Dad, I'm coming in for F1. I don't want to see my school get pounded by Texas. I'm going to the Colorado game the following week.
Yeah. I haven't studied their roster too much, outside of playing them in College Football 25 and reading a few things on them. You can't sleep on the Mountain West. We saw what Jeff Choate and those guys did against SMU. Not that SMU is like a massive power or anything. Sorry, no offense, Chip.
They sure didn't play like a massive power.
You can't sleep on those guys. So obviously, they've had some success here and there. They played Colorado real close last year. That was one of the fun games of the early season last year. So yeah, I'm curious to see. I just saw a video of them blaring the Eyes of Texas during their practice.
Yeah, I saw that going around.
So they're getting ready.
That's an old OU thing.
What's that?
Jay got that from his days at OU. OU, they blare that thing to the point where the OU players are like, I never want to hear this bloody song again.
Yeah. Got to work on it. So yeah, it'll be fun. It should be a good weekend.
Yeah. All right. Here's a question from our man CB. Hank, where does Texas finish the 2025 class, top 5 or higher?
Yeah. I think higher. I think they'll be in the top 5 by Friday. So, you got to think any more additions is going to put them higher. I don't think there's really any more, I never want to say there's no flip threats. You never know what can happen with a kid and him changing his mind. But I mean, this class seems pretty tight knit. Jamie French on Friday, assuming you get him, Michael Terry, another 5-star that's getting ready to announce here in the next few weeks. I think Texas is trending there. There's a lot of buzz right now about Myron Charles, the 4-star defensive lineman that's committed to Florida State. I think Florida State better, circle back on their 2025 recruiting class, because, and I know, one game doesn't define a season, but if they start dropping off or have another, rough go, I think that recruiting class could maybe go and get poached a little bit, whether it be Myron Charles, another defensive lineman, Kevin Wynn, who Texas is still recruiting really hard. Even, Dalen McCutcheon, the 4-star wide receiver from Lovejoy, that's a guy that, Texas really likes. That could be a situation. I wouldn't be shocked in the end of the day that they circle back and maybe bring him in if they have an extra spot. Obviously if he wants to flip. I think higher, I think 3-4 range is probably the most likely finish for this Texas class.